States and the relationship with Iran. You seem to not mention one of the major issues, which is human rights in Iran. Could you say something about what Turkey and the United States are doing to try to put pressure on the government of Iran for human rights?
Well, that's obviously an important issue, one probably better addressed to my colleagues at the Department of State. But I think if I was identifying some challenges for the future, I think that's an area where we could be doing more together than at present. Because I think ultimately we've learned that the nature of a regime, how it treats its own people, can affect whether it is a stabilizing or destabilizing factor in the wider region. So I think that given our shared values and our commitment to democratic principles, this is something that deserves increasing attention going forward.
Ambassador.
No, go ahead.
If you could speak more...
Identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Aaron Sabak. If you could speak a little bit more as to the efforts made by the United States and Turkey to bridge the political gaps and difficulties between Afghanistan and the Pakistani government, I'd appreciate to hear a little bit more on that issue.
Well, that's getting into sensitive diplomatic issues that I'd rather not comment on. Clearly, there's a lot of strains right now in our relationship with Pakistan. That's no secret. And we, I think, welcome efforts by countries like Turkey who have access, have contacts with the leadership to try to find some common ground, recognizing that ultimately the terrorist threats, both in Afghanistan and within Pakistan itself, are the long-term menace that we should be focusing on, and that we need to better align our policies so that the Afghan government, when it takes responsibility at the end of this transition process, can live in a secure, stable neighborhood rather than seeing a reversion to some of the instability of the past.
Thank you very kindly. You mentioned human rights. Robert Friedman, Johns Hopkins University. You mentioned human rights becoming more of an issue than in the past in our relationship. I wonder if the issue of the Turkish government's crackdown on its own press has come up in discussions between the United States and Turkey.
The short answer is yes. These are issues that my colleagues at the State Department and in our embassy discuss in a constructive way with our Turkish colleagues. But I think that if one looks at the big picture, looking at the very successful elections just held in Turkey, I think that this is an area on which we generally see eye to eye, and we can both bring a common approach as we try to encourage the spread of democratic values, respect for human rights, including freedom of the press, throughout the Middle East region. So I see this as an area of opportunity, but these are certainly issues that we talk about as a friend and close partner of Turkey. One more, sure. Maybe a more DoD-centric question.
Mr. Secretary, my name is Samar Chatterjee from Safe Foundation. Most of the other questions were kind of negative for Turkey. Let me ask something which would be a little negative for the United States. You quoted Truman as saying that peaceful way of dealing with problems is better. But for the last decade plus, we've been seeing the United States going to war in several countries. You mentioned, of course, quite a few of them. Given that, is the United States going to change its behavior to make sure that peaceful way of dealing with problems are more focused? Of course, you're from the Department of Defense, so you'd want to wars. I'm just kidding. But would you address that?
I think the Department of Defense is probably the leading advocate of diplomatic solutions, and that's been manifested in Secretary Gates's strong advocacy for beefing up the State Department's budget, and his strong support for soft power as the better way to solve problems with hard power, definitely the option of last resort. President Obama obviously came to office inheriting two ongoing wars. We can now look forward to the completion of our responsible drawdown in Iraq by the end of this year. Last night he made a very important announcement about our plans to recover the surge forces in Afghanistan as the prospects for the transition become increasingly bright. So certainly there may be other challenges that require the use of force in the future. We can't rule that out, and we have to be prepared. But our preference is to address these issues through diplomatic means if at all possible.